Alright, so in this video, we're returning once again to Behemoth after the first patch for MetaQuest 2 3.3s dropped on December 12th. But I want to hit on the note that in part this video is sponsored by MetaQuest, and as I'm in the MetaQuest Creator Program, also an affiliate, if you think about purchasing a headset, I'll leave links down below for picking up a new MetaQuest 3.3s or Behemoth, including from November 29 to December 31, 2024. My link gives you a bonus of $60 in Quest cash to spend on whatever game you want on the Quest store, like the game in this video. With that out of the way, Skydance's patch for Behemoth is absolutely massive in fixes and brings a new change of pace to the campaign. I'll be covering the full patch notes in details with improvements, bug fixes, and the second half give my overall opinion of Behemoth. If you want to read the full patch notes, I'll leave a link down below. Unlike my first impressions of Behemoth, this video will have more spoilers about the story and gameplay as well. If you want none of that, check out my impressions video. It should pretty much encompass my feelings about the game. First thing, having started an entirely new save after completing the game in about 10 hours, which in part is exaggerated because of the crashes, sequences not happening, leading to progression being blocked, multiple deaths, not knowing what to do during Behemoth encounters, jankier parrying or parrying outright not working, and forgetting to use the rage mode by pressing and holding the right controller's trigger, which is insanely OP, and you don't have to suffer like I did, as with explosive arrows. You can two-shot any boss in the hardest difficulty. But before, in my impressions video, I gave this game a rating of wait for a sale or pick it up after multiple patches down the road. Now, if you really want to try it, I can more so recommend Behemoth, as it's in a much better state now, as it's cross-buy on the Meta PCVR app. That's a plus, but by no means is it anywhere near perfect. Skydance Interactive still has a lot of work to do, but in the store it mentions in-app purchases, so they can't just abandon this title like they did to Retribution. Although the recent changes inside the patch notes, specifically on Quest, they brought over 1,000 new art, audio, gameplay, and player experience improvements, which is great, but at the same time questions the state they released the game in, on Quest at least, knowingly. But who am I to complain? VR is still in the growing stages, but buying any game really at launch in 2024 is essentially paying for early access, AAA or indie. Before getting into the graphics, they added a shader compiling loading screen at the game's boot, including that when you first launch the game, you get this screen for about 2 to 3 minutes, then the game loads. Mentions they'll be adding better communication of the installation progress in the near future. Now for the part everyone was looking forward to. A common sentiment I saw were people hoping for graphical improvements on Quest 3.3s and parrying being fixed. On the graphical side, the game still looks the same honestly. It's rendered at the default resolution scale on Quest 3.3s. I like showing the starting menu screen, as it's heavier on GPU utilization as it's rendering the entire scene, including foliage and for reading text. It's still pretty much identical, but the patch notes mentions improving numerous environments and foliage textures on Quest 3, improved material resolution on various surfaces, but you still have to be extremely close to notice, like this cliff or any rock in general. Improved lighting for visibility and dramatic flare, which lighting fog has improved in the opening chapter of the game, with lighting improvements increasing the overall contrast of the world. It looks less bright and is more subtle on your eyes, which during the snow starting area is an improvement to not burn your eyeballs. As with noticing that the first intro to Shacklehide, apart from the intro, you'll notice significantly less fog during his appearance during the Marauder campfire scene. Dramatic flare, I imagine, is the beam of lights in this mini boss stage and parts here and there located around the world. As with mentioning substantial reductions to visual popping issues in the environment playing, though it still happens quite often. Improved several floating assets like arrows and medicine. It clips a bit more into the ground now. Improved cliff collision, and music will no longer stop during Shacklehide's battle. But for me, it still occurred with audio cutting in and out, but I'm usually recording, so my experience will vary. Let me know if it still happens to you. Basically what I'm getting at is that there still isn't no graphical upgrade, but if you want to improve the resolution, you can go with Quest Games Optimizer, scaling it to 125% with the HD profile. It's Skydance, so if Quest 3.3s gets an upgrade down the road, it'll be some time before getting the update, or it'll be pushed with an expansion to boost sales. I'll include this quick little comparison of certain areas, with the left side being the base game's graphics since the patch and the right side with Quest Games Optimizer HD profile. Still, graphics and resolution are two different things. I personally don't have an issue with the base resolution of the game. It still looks quite fine on Quest, shouldn't affect immersion at all. Crisper visuals and less aliasing, although a trend I noticed with increasing the resolution is that it stutters a lot more when exiting and entering new areas. It's not perfect, as with the default base game profile, it still needs optimization, but at the end of it all, you have to remember Quest is a mobile headset. Unlike PCVR or PSVR 2, it does all the processing on board. If you really care about graphics, PSVR cost-wise still is the way to go. Combat is interesting. It plays well with almost no noticeable issues, but I found another bug with a Marauder being stuck inside the gate. This game still needs quite a few more updates or minor patch fixes. Secondly, parrying has been improved quite a bit. This is a part of the update I was looking forward to the most and most likely out of the bunch in the timeline. You can parry an enemy more effectively, as this patch mentions weapon angle for successful parries and blocks has increased. Forgiveness angle is based on how perpendicular the player's weapon is in relation to the incoming attack. Makes the game way better, although a bit easier and much less of a headache, as you don't have to repeat sections over and over. Loading screens are a detriment to any VR experience. The funny thing is, I was testing parries with blocking attacks from the Mad Marauder. Bro randomly walked towards the edge of the bridge and jumped off. Other combat tuning changes include that players' dodge is more forgiving with additional invincibility frames for a total of 0.5 seconds of invulnerability. Helps a ton with unblockable hits, as you no longer get insta-killed if you don't perfectly time the dodge. Before, I can vow it was legit milliseconds to get a dodge right during boss battles in the hardest difficulty. Unless you hit a parry during an attack, you aren't beating anything. The only other enemy I can remember in VR for Quest in a similar difficulty was the first boss in Asgard's Wrath 2 at launch. That's why in my initial impressions video, I compared this game to like a Souls-like. Next, they disabled dodge sidesteps for enemies only for now. While I for one like the added difficulty, I don't know why they disabled it. Probably the complaints of the game being too hard. As with exposed headshots on enemies are now one-hit kills even on hard, and mini bosses can take one more hit depending on their health. One thing I did notice as well is that enemy hitboxes also feel a bit refined as well. Hitting their torso or their shoulders with a sword is much more easier. The feel of two-handed weapons has greatly improved to be less wonky. Combat stamina drain also got tuned across all difficulty modes, reducing and changing difficulty multipliers, including that they added a new mode for those who want to hack and slash with minimal loss in the new Freestyle mode that's in beta. You can toggle this on within the menu, allowing you to swing until you yourself physically can't. But achievements trophies are disabled with the Freestyle mode toggled on, which for me I could honestly care less about, and mentions they'll be testing how it affects combat balance and progression. I tried it out and it completely changed the feel of the game. Although I toggle it on for the sake of the video, I really don't like it. The stamina system Skydance has implemented in Behemoth and even Saints and Sinners is a staple for them. Stamina regen can be really annoying sometimes, as you'll be in a heated moment, get bashed, and you have to hide until a full regen, but without it, it starts to feel like every other roguelike. You can change it back with leaving it on standard, and I think the stamina system is here to stay, and I personally like it. Other gameplay and miscellaneous fixes include lowering damage from enemy attacks for those playing in the Tenderfoot game difficulty. Herbs are faster to eat and recover health at an increased rate, which at times this is an update I absolutely needed, fixing certain progression blockers like Hollow King repeating phase 1. I personally got this bug a total of 3 times and contemplated finishing the game the next day, but on the 4th try somehow it worked. Disappointingly, the trophy room of collectibles you pick up is no longer on the table, now appearing in their inventory slots. Various level updates, climbing refinements to Behemoth as clipping inside of them, improved hit reaction and state transitions on enemies in combat, refined hand grips and inverse kinematics, which gives an improved perception / immersion of natural movement inside the game on vertical and horizontal horizontal rope gripping. The next day, they also dropped a minor patch fixing the main menu popping in during shader compiling. If you want to read the full patch notes, I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. Overall, this patch is a huge step in the right direction. Skydance isn't known for releasing the most polished games at launch, and I expect they will keep improving the current experience. But because the game is cross-buy, it gives you access to the PCVR version as well, so that's a plus. Currently, Behemoth sits at a 4.2 star rating on Quest with 478 ratings and 284 reviews. The ambience of Behemoth is unrivaled and is one of the most immersive VR games to date. The music, voice acting, and visuals are top-notch for Quest, and I for one never experienced the fear of heights until climbing my way up to Dreadstack. As with Night Scraper, as you fly high into the sky, into the clouds, and you're holding on to dear life. It's a game I would recommend highly, but parrying was my biggest issue with the experience. Now with the Day 7 patch, it's noticeably better. Sometimes certain hits or heavy attacks, it'll just go through, as with arrows or throwing knives. Picking up the game considerably now should be a smoother experience. But if you can wait, it'll be better to wait a month or two for a patch addressing more issues. Let me know your thoughts down below, what you think of Behemoth and the patch itself. A full review should follow up as I don't want to drag this video out anymore. Again, thanks for Meta for sponsoring a segment in this video. Leave a like or dislike, subscribe for similar VR content and ramblings from me. Until the next video, see ya.